Hello everyone, welcome to week number 4 of our art quilt series where we are making a stained glass flower mystery quilt. Week 4, we are already approaching the middle of this quilt and I cannot believe how quick this one's going by. I've had so much fun talking with you, reading your comments, answering your questions, and seeing your pictures. I'm totally blown away. Just the uniqueness of each one of the quilts just is really one of the things that I love about doing these series, is really just seeing your pictures and hearing your feedback. I hope you're having a lot of fun so far. Today I thought I would do something a little bit different. I'm going to bring you along and show you my 6 pieces of fabric for this week that I've chosen. We'll go over the puzzle pieces a little bit, but then before we get started, I have a little shopping haul that I'd like to share with you. So I went to Joann's Fabrics this morning and I have a bag of goodies. And really, I just went through the store selecting different items that I thought might really work in finishing off this quilt. In the last week's video, and even the week before that, in week number 2's video, I had several people mention things like using ribbon to finish off the raw edges of our 5-inch squares. So I thought I would actually stitch some of these things out so you get an idea before you go out trying to find any of these things. And let's really see how these materials look on fabric when you stitch them out. I think that will be a lot of fun. And I really like experimenting and spending time in the studio with you. So it's a win-win situation. We're going to go through, I've left the labels on everything so you can see exactly what I'm using. And then I'll show you what it looks like stitched out on some fabric. And I'll even show you how you can stitch it onto your quilt top. So we have a lot of little things to cover this week. Let's go ahead and get started. Now we're ready to go ahead and get started with my little shopping haul. I thought it would be fun. I would bring along the receipt and just let you know what I paid for these items so that you would have an idea of the cost involved if you saw something in today's video that you really liked. And you could sort of stay on budget with your quilt. It might be that you don't like any of these things I'm going to show today, and that's perfectly fine. I am also going to show you what it looks like to do a zigzag or a satin stitch around all of your raw edges with your 5-inch squares in today's video as well. So let's go ahead and get started. You can see I have 4 different bias tapes, and these are made by Wrights. And I just went into the bias tape aisle. They have all different colors. You don't have to go with black. I'm choosing black for my quilt. But yeah, it comes in all different colors. It comes in all different widths. And there's small differences with each one of them. And so I got 4 just to show you what the differences are. And I thought I would do a little math. And so somewhere right in this lower corner, I'm going to put the total cost. I'll do the math for you for each one of these and let you know how many packages of this that you would need to finish off your quilt. So if you're working on a budget and this is something you really like, then you have an idea of the cost involved to use these products. Again, you could make your own bias tape. You could use yarn and things that you already have, or you could do the zigzag stitch or a satin stitch as well. So this one here is 1/4 inch bias tape double folded. And so let me just show you how wide this is. Just like this. It is just like this. Now this reminds me the most of the bias tape that I made in last week's video. It is double folded, and so it does have a seam that runs right on the back side, but both edges of your bias tape are finished. And it is 1/4 inch wide, and you get 4 yards of this, and it was $2.99. So of course, you know, places like Joann's, you could use coupons if it's not on sale. So that'll give you an idea. And again, I'll put the total cost if you wanted to do your whole quilt with this. Then I'll do all the math and figure out how many packages you would need. I really like this one. But I'm also a fan of this one, and this is bias tape single fold. This is a 1/2 inch wide, and this you also get 4 yards of this one, and I'll show you the difference with the single fold versus the last one that we just looked at. This one, both edges are finished on the front side, and the back has an open seam. Let me see if I can open that up for you. Just like this. So this reminds me of bias tape that you would make if you had any of those little bias tape makers. This is what your bias tape would look like if you used one of those. This is already pre-made for you, so it saves you the step. However, if you have fabric on hand in your stash and you'd like to make your own, I really do like the bias tape makers. So again, that was the single fold 1/2 inch. I'll put how many packages and the cost involved with that. All of these Wright's bias tapes, oh, getting that back in the package, are $2.99. This one here I thought was really interesting, and I'll have to see how this one works. It's an iron-on hem tape. It is also a 1/2 inch wide, and you get 3 yards for this package. And so here's your cost and how many packages you would need. Now this one has a little bit of a different texture and sheen to it. It is not folded. It has this adhesive strip on the back. And so that might make the application part of using this product relatively easy, I would think. I would need to experiment and see. It's not stretchy, and it does have a pretty little sheen to it. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not, but I'm wondering with the adhesive if you can sew over top of that. Maybe the adhesive is permanent. Let's see if there's any instructions in here. No instructions. So I think this will take some investigating on how to use it. Maybe there's something online I can look up, but yeah, we'll give this a try and see how well we like that one. Again, $2.99. And then this last one is twill tape, and this is also a 1/2 inch, and you get 3 yards of this as well. So I'll put how many yards you need and the total cost if you wanted to use this. Let's see what this looks like. Now keep in mind they also had bias tape that was wider than 1/2 an inch, like the last 3 that I showed you. They make some that's like 1 inch or 1.5 inches. But I thought for this quilt, really, I probably, for me, would not go any wider than really the 1/2 inch. This is just like a ribbon, and it's nice and thin. It does have a pretty little sheen to it. Again, I don't know that the camera is really going to pick that up, but I think I'm going to really like this. There's nothing folded over to the back with a finished edge on both sides. So I'm really liking this one as well. Yeah, I think I really like that one. Okay, so those are the 4 different bias tapes that I picked up. Again, all $2.99. And then I got some Capen Simply Soft yarn. I'll show you how wide this is. This is the thinner weighted yarn. Let's see. It tells you on here a medium number 4. So yeah, it's a pretty thin yarn. So just like that, if you wanted your lines to be finished, but you did not want it to be like really overpowering your quilt, then maybe something like this. I will show you how to do some couching here in just a little bit, but let's go over the cost. Of course, this would do your quilt and many, 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 many more. You could even make some little beanies or some booties to keep your feet warm with this, I believe. Maybe. That was on sale. So It was normally $4.99. I got it for $3.74. So if you were interested in doing a yarn like this, you're looking at about, $5 or less. Now this one is probably my favorite if I'm going to use a yarn. This is the Lions brand Hometown USA yarn. It is, let's see, I always have a hard time reading these labels. Oh, super bulky, number 6. So it is much thicker than the last yarn that I just showed you. Let me see. Oh yay, I found the loose end. So let's just take a look at these two yarns side by side. So you can see the difference in both of them. And I will show you how you can couch just using your regular zigzag stitch and secure this yarn into place. Now let's look at the cost. Of course, this would do your quilt and many others, and maybe make some other projects. Let's see, the Hometown, that was also $4.99, on sale for $3.74. So that is a really great deal. So there are the two yarns that I'm going to use in today's demonstrations. And then I picked up two different kinds of ribbon. We have the Offray ribbon, which is a black, looks like a satin ribbon. I'm not quite sure what it is made out of. It's a polyester. And it is, let's see, how wide is that? Oh, 3/8 of an inch. I have the hardest time reading all the different labels from product to product. 3/8 of an inch. This was, let's see, Offray ribbon was $2.99, and there are 21 feet on this spool. So I would say, I'll do the math. I'll put the cost right here just to make sure that I'm really right. But I'm almost thinking 21 feet is going to be plenty, but I really have to add things up. So right here is how many spools of that you would need and the total cost if you wanted to use this ribbon. And then I got some gross grain ribbon, and this is 1/8 thick. So this is tiny little stuff. Let's take a look at this. Tiny, tiny, tiny. Actually, I kind of like that though, right? So let's take a look at these two side by side while we're here. So you can see I just went through the store, picked up a little of this and a little of that. So this wider one is the Offray ribbon, which they said was 3/8 wide, and the smaller one is the gross grain ribbon, which is 1/8. Now this one does have a little bit of a texture to it. It has the little lines, and I'm pretty sure that that's not going to show up, but it has little tiny lines running through the ribbon, but it is nice and thin, and I think this would work really well too. So on this you get 6 yards. So I'm going to do the math and put how many of these you would need and what the cost is going to be. And that was $1.99 for this spool of ribbon. So there are all the goodies that I found. I am going to go ahead and do some experimenting this afternoon. And we'll come back and I'll show you my finished examples, so you can see what all of these things look like stitched onto the quilt top, and then I will show you how I stitched them, and I think that that is going to apply to all of these different things, and so that I don't think it's going to take so long, but I'm really hoping that this might inspire you or give you some good ideas for your quilt. So now I get to go turn on my sewing machine and do some play work, and we'll meet back when I have some examples to show you. All right, I have had my fun for the afternoon with all of these little pretty sample quilt blocks. So I'm going to go through each one of the products that I showed you, and I'm going to show you that even if you don't want to use any of these ideas, this is how I originally thought that I would finish my quilt, with a simple zigzag stitch. You can see by adjusting the stitch, you can achieve different looks. These on all four sides are different lengths and different widths, and so you can play around to achieve the look that you're looking for that goes really well with your quilt and that you're happy with. You could use a thread like this, a black thread, to go with your quilt. You could use a thread that blends into your background so you don't even see this stitch, but it secures all of your raw edges. Or you could use a contrasting thread. I mean, this is an art quilt, and really something that would stick out and really add to your background. So it's really all up to you, but originally when I designed this quilt, this is the stitch that I had in mind. So even if you decide not to use any kind of bias tape or ribbon or yarn, you can simply use the zigzag stitch. Or you could use the satin stitch. Now I do think that the satin stitch would require a lot more time at your machine. Just in doing this sample block, I did a thinner one going this way and a little bit thicker one coming down. So you can see two different looks. It is beautiful. However, it is a little bit more time consuming depending on how fast your machine will do a satin stitch. And also keep in mind that I used a stabilizer on the back to get my satin stitch really nice and pretty. You may or may not need to use the stabilizer. I think personally, to save money on stabilizer, if I were going to do a satin stitch to finish off my squares, I would probably wait until my quilt is all layered and put together and do the satin stitch as part of my quilting, because I think the batting and the backing material would help stabilize the satin stitch, and it would save a lot of money on stabilizer. So can you imagine using stabilizer for a whole quilt top? But I think that is just as lovely, just like that. So zigzag and satin stitch. Now let's go into the products that I showed you earlier. This one here is the gross grain ribbon. It was the 1/8 wide ribbon. These first two, just to let you know, I did free-handed. I just lined it up and sewed and tried to keep my ribbon straight as I went along. I'm going to show you at the end of this video how easy it is to sew your ribbon. So this one and the next one I did just free-handed, and so you can see my lines are a little wavy. However, I think that is very pretty and very nice and clean looking. So we have that one. This next one was the off-ray ribbon, which, okay, so that's the gross grain ribbon. This one is your off-ray ribbon, and I think too that that is very nice and pretty. It's not straight at all, I don't think, because I was just doing it as, you know, holding the ribbon in place as I went along. But I do think that that is nice and pretty, and it's a simple zigzag stitch right through the middle, and there's those two. Then I decided after doing these two that I might want to run a bead of glue and place down my my little bias tape, and for me that helped me stay nice and straight. So if I decide to go with any of these products, I will run a bead of glue, lay down my tape. I pressed mine with an iron just to dry the glue. I guess you could let that air dry as well. And then I just took it to the sewing machine and did a simple zigzag stitch. So this one here was the double folded 1/4 inch bias tape. How gorgeous is that? I think that is very, very pretty. So let me just show you what that one looked like. Here we go. That is this one here. Let's do this one here. This is the single fold bias tape. It is a 1/2 inch wide. You can see I got a little bit of glue that just pops off of there when it's dry. But that is very pretty as well. You can see that the border is much wider So you get two totally different looks, but I think that is very, very pretty. So that was your single fold 1/2 inch. Let's go with the twill, and that is that this one? Yes, the twill. Sorry. That is this one here. That comes 3 yards, and I think that is very pretty. This one is much thinner. Not that it really matters. I mean, this is an art quilt. This is not something we're going to be putting on the bed, so you're more than likely not going to feel where it's thicker in different areas. This one, the bias tape is a little bit thicker, but it's very pretty, and the twill does have a little bit of sheen to it. I'm hoping you can see that. You can also see I just did a zigzag stitch that didn't have to be pretty. It all blends in, but it secures all of my pieces forever and ever. So that was this one. And then I tried the iron-on hem tape, which I've never used before, and I was pleasantly surprised. I used, there's no instructions, and I didn't even look it up. I just turned my iron to a polyester setting and went to town. I cut my strips the length of my block, and with an iron it just took a couple seconds and it was on there. I will say that I don't know that it's permanent. I would really have to investigate that. If it was permanent, then I think that you could just iron that on and be done. But because I don't know, I went ahead and brought it to the sewing machine and did the zigzag stitch. I had absolutely no problems sewing through it. It did not gum up my needle, and there were no skipped stitches. I mean, it acted perfectly fine. So whatever type of adhesive that is on there, it acted fine with my sewing machine. And that is also a 1/2 inch wide. So see how pretty that is? This was very easy and quick. So I don't know if maybe that might be an option if you want to go that way. And then I came in with my 2 yarns, and this is the Capen, the smaller, thinner yarn, and this was the Lions brand. And so you can definitely see the difference between the thicker yarn and the thinner yarn. And really it's just as simple as doing a zigzag stitch. I'm going to show you at the end, setting your stitch so that it catches your yarn. And again, I did run a bead of glue with my yarn as well, and I set the glue with my iron just like the bias tape. So I did not have any issues, and I was able to keep it nice and straight that way. We'll see if you can see. This one has a little bit more texture and some thicker lines. And I've always been a fan of couching on my quilts and adding just another element of design and texture to my quilts. There is a close-up of the thinner yarn. So I'm just hoping that my little demonstration gave you some ideas on ways to clean up the raw edge of your quilt and secure all those pieces forever and ever. And these are really just ideas that I've had since I've started the quilt. Again, my original thought in the design process was to do the zigzag stitch, which I think is just as lovely as well. So there are some different options for you to consider as we are halfway through the quilt as of today. And I would love to hear your comments down below. Which one did you think was the more work involved, and which one did you like the best? Jump down to the comment section and let me know, and stay tuned to the end of the video and I'll show you how easy it is. It's just a simple zigzag stitch in a straight line basically. But I'm going to show you with the bias tape and with the yarn at the very end. Now let me go ahead and break out my fabrics for week number 4 and show you those and the puzzle pieces. Let's go ahead and take a look at my fabrics for week number 4. You can see my color palette for my 6 blocks. We'll take a closer look. We got that one and a magenta or fuchsia color. I'm going to throw in another one of the stone blocks. We have this purple with flowers, This week I'm going to use one of the stripes, one of the fat quarters that I showed in my week 1 video. And we'll repeat this fabric down in week number 4. So there are my 6 color choices for this block, for this week. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and take a look at our puzzle pieces for this week. There are 3 pages for this PDF, and you'll notice, let's take a look at our grid for week number 4. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks of applique, and the very last block, F4, is going to be a solid piece of fabric with no applique. So this week ought to fly by with our applique pieces. Let's go ahead and take a look at our puzzle pieces. You can see A4 extends down and finishes off the tip of our flower with white fabric. And then we have 2 green leaves coming up into block A4. B4 is an extension of the leaf, and right up here is another one of those tiny little pieces. I believe I am not going to even mess with this piece, and I'll show you why. I've decided I am going to do some kind of leading strip, and I haven't decided which one, but no matter which one I use, it's going to cover that up. And so I've decided not to even mess with that. If you're going to do a zigzag stitch, then that part might be visible. It is a little dot of white. The polka dots do not show up very well. There's just an edge of a polka dot in that little piece. But so if you're doing a zigzag stitch, you might want to include a little white tip. But if you are going to finish off your quilt with a satin stitch or one of these products that I showed you today or something else, then you might not even want to mess with it, because more than likely it's going to be covered up. And this is the thinnest. This was the gross grain ribbon, and it almost covers that piece up completely anyway. So I'm not even going to mess with the little tip in the position before. C4 comes down and finishes the bottom of the flower, and then we're going back into green at the base of the flower and a leaf that comes up. D4, we're using all green fabrics. You can see there's little separations, and so I'm going to do a satin stitch around all of these separating pieces. Really gives the look of a stained glass piece. And then E4 is an extension of a leaf. Again, another small little smidgen in this lower left hand corner. I'm not going to even mess with that this week, because my leading strip will cover that at the end. So you have some choices. If you're going to do a zigzag stitch, you might have 2 blocks that have little tiny pieces in them that you'll need to contend with this week. If you're leaning on the side of using something like this, then I would not even worry about doing those small little pieces this week. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get busy cutting out my applique shapes. We'll come back after I've put them onto the fabric base, and we'll take a look at the progress of my quilt after week 4. Here I am back from attaching all of my blocks for this week onto my fabric base. So you can see from the right side of the quilt, we'll slowly go over because it doesn't all fit in the picture. And there we are. So let me just point out a few little things, because we already mentioned them earlier in this video. We had piece B4 with the tiny little smidgen up in that corner. I did not do that. If you're doing a zigzag stitch, maybe attach your block and then come in and fill that area in. That might be easiest, because you can see it's really just going to be satin stitch. But I plan on doing something like this, which would cover that piece right up. So just like that would finish it off. And of course a thicker one, just like this, would certainly finish that off as well. So that was position B1, or B4, I'm sorry. And this is how everything lined up. The only real issue I had this week was getting my satin stitch to line up from C4 to C3 right here in this green area. Again, I'm not even going to worry about it because there will be a separation like this, and I think that that looks absolutely fine. So I'm loving the progress of this quilt. I think it is a lot of fun. It's certainly an interesting concept for putting together a quilt. I will say that some of my blocks, because we're moving this quilt from week to week and we're putting new blocks on, some of the blocks up above have started to come loose, so I just put a little bit more glue on there and press that back down. But everything is shaping up really nice. I'm going to put a full picture of the progress right here so you can see the whole quilt and how it's starting to come together. It's a lot easier to put a picture here so you can see the whole thing versus fitting it into the screen. So if you are interested in seeing how I do a zigzag stitch with the bias tape and the yarn, stay tuned. I'm going to put that right here. And also, just to let you know, I do want to do a slideshow. And I don't really think that it matters if you have completed week 4. If you're still on week 1 and want to share your progress, I welcome all the pictures into the slideshow. I'm going to put the slideshow into next week's video at the very beginning. And so yeah, we can share and get inspired by your pictures and your quilts. If you want to share your progress to the point where you are now, we're going to have a whole week to get me your pictures. In the description box below, you're going to have several different options to share your pictures. If you don't do social media, go to my Etsy shop, and there's a feature through there that you can send me a message. Send me your picture through there and just let me know, yes, you want to be included in the slideshow. If you do Facebook, go over there and to try to keep all the pictures together, I would really like it if you shared it on the Creative Crew group and maybe hashtag me or tag me in your photo. But I'm also going to make a post, and in that post you can share your pictures in the comments section. That way I have an easier time. I would really feel really bad if you wanted to share your picture and it was posted somewhere else and I did not see it and it doesn't get included. So we'll try to make it easy on the Creative Crew. Share your picture in my post or tag me somehow in your post and just let me know you want to share, or jump over to Etsy, send me a message with your picture. So this week has been a lot of fun. I really hope that this has given you some ideas. Of course, the zigzag stitch is probably the easiest and less expensive way to go, and I certainly think that that would finish off everything nicely. But here are a bunch of different other options that I've shared with you today, so maybe that'll inspire something, or maybe not even in this quilt, maybe something that you create down the road. All right, let's go ahead and go to the sewing machine if you want to stick around. If not, I hope you have a wonderful week and we will see you next week. Okay, here we are with the double folded 1/4 inch binding tape. I've already just run a small bead of glue along the raw edge in both directions. Let that dry. Some materials you might be able to heat set it with a iron, and then we're just going to bring it to the sewing machine. I have my machine set on a zigzag stitch with the appropriate foot, and of course you'll want to test all your settings before you get started, just to make sure that your width and your length is set up to the way that you'd like it to sew for the material that you're using. And then we're just going to do a zigzag stitch in both directions. You'll see that I have a little bit hanging off the raw edge of our quilt top. I think that you'll want to have that there. We are adding a border all the way around our quilt top, so you'll end up trimming this little bit off, but you do want your bias tape, if you decide to use this, to extend off to the edge of your quilt top. Now we can come back and sew in the opposite direction. I did do 2 of these free-handed without gluing them, and of course my little shaky hands, I did not get everything straight. So you could either just hold your bias tape and sew along without gluing. For me, I think I get a straighter result running that bead of glue and letting that dry or heat setting it with the iron. My tape seems to stay a lot straighter that way. So just like that, the zigzag stitch secures our bias tape and closes off those edges. This is exactly how I would do it with the bias tape and the ribbon and the yarn, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the yarn next. Okay, here we are with the Lions brand yarn. I went ahead and just, same thing, I ran a small bead of glue, I dried it with my iron, and I'm ready to come in and do the zigzag stitch. I can widen this one a little bit more, and we're ready to start sewing. Come back and do this other side. Of course, you don't have to glue baste anything down. You could do this free-handed if you wanted to. And I am sorry, I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone recommended sewing down some bias tape with a twin needle as well. So maybe in next week's video I will figure out the twin needle for this machine. I haven't used it before, and we'll give that a go. But the zigzag stitch works perfectly, and so there you go. That's how easy it is to sew down your ribbon or bias tape or even yarn. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you for week number 5. Bye.